25, the water's burned too warm. From African shores, a whisper grew into a storm. Melissa was a name, born from the restless sea. 13 on the list that year, but oh, what she would be. Category 1 on Friday, but the ocean had it set. Those warming waters, 1.4 degrees above the way things used to be. And in just 48 short hours, she rose to category 5 with unimaginable powers. 185. The winds that tie the record books. 892. The pressure that the old earth shook. Melissa came so slowly, crawling 3 miles every hour. And when she reached Jamaica's shore, she showed the darkest power. Remember the children, remember the lost, remember the lesson, remember the cost. The waters are rising, the storm's growing strong. We sing to remember.
Okay, good evening, everyone. Welcome to the hurricane season wrap-up show. I'm Jim Williams. What you're looking at is the live Delray Beach Tower cam, which has not been hit by a hurricane in 20 years. Hurricane Wilma was the last hurricane back in 2005 where the core came over the tower. But ever since then, it's been glancing blow shows. There's been, the closest was Hurricane Irma back in... can't remember the year, 2018, I believe that was, where it came on the west coast of Florida, and we had hurricane force gusts here on the tower, but no core of a hurricane has passed over the tower. And, you know, I like to talk about Josh Morgan's situation, you know, the storm chaser. He's got his, it's not really a tower, it's a pole, and he's got weather instruments on top, and he's got a weather cam. And I told him, you know, jokingly, I said, you know, now your neighbors are going to love you because, not that they don't already love him, but they're going to love the fact that he's jinxing the area, you know, keeping hurricanes away, just like my tower cam does. And the neighbors love that too here, you know, that I keep all the hurricanes away by, you know, having everything ready to film the most epic hurricane landfall you could imagine, and it never happens, right? So that'll probably happen with him up in the northern Gulf Coast. Anyway, I got a lot to talk about tonight, but I just want to say, you know, before we get started with the images I want to show you tonight, the people down in Jamaica, you know, this season's over, right? But they're going to be living Melissa for years. And this is the areas that were the hardest hit in the western portions of Jamaica, just east of Negril. Those are the areas that are going to really be a long time for them to you know, get anything close to normal. Areas east of Negril over to the Black River, and areas like just basically that 1/3 of the western portion of Jamaica up towards Montego Bay. It's going to take a long time for them to get back to normal, and in the southern shores over there, many years. So while we just move on, you know, the United States was lucky this year. We didn't get anything of any substance affecting the United States, and you know, we're just going to go on with our lives. But the people down there are going to be suffering for a long time. And this happens after every major hurricane strikes, whether it's in the United States or in the Caribbean. You get lost. If you're there and you get hit, it's lost on the public psyche. After, you know, they're all caught up in it with the donations and everything. And once the hurricane is out of the news, that's when the real suffering begins. And this is why the donations are critical for the people down in Jamaica after the season ends, because the media is not talking about the hurricane at all. So this is really important to emphasize. If you're going to donate in the off season, is the time to do it for the people in Jamaica, because they're going to have a long, long road ahead here. So here is the 2025 hurricane season finale map. And as you can see here, we had all of the systems mainly out over the open Atlantic, except for Melissa, and of course, Bermuda got impacted by a couple of systems this year. And by the way, the messages are open tonight, so if anybody wants to chime in, on the social medias that this is over at YouTube and Facebook. I'm monitoring the messages here, and I'll be able to put them up. Oh, Carlos already said 2017. Yeah, I forgot about it. I was thinking 2018 because I was in Hurricane Michael in 2018. So that was what my thinking was on. Yeah, that was 2017. My apologies on that. Anyway, look at this conglomeration of tracks. Um, so all out over the open Atlantic here, and this is reminiscent of the 2014 and 15 hurricane seasons where we had 2014 we had let's see, was Gonzalo in 2014 that hit land, and Joaquin in 2015. And of course, everybody remembers 2015. There were no hurricane landfalls in the U.S., but that major hurricane down in the Bahamas took out that El Faro ship, the idiot captain that decided he's going to core punch the hurricane on the way to Puerto Rico, and everybody on board died. That was tragic. So even though the United States doesn't get hit in a season like this, there's still a lot of tragedy that takes place. And the most tragic areas impacted this year were obviously Jamaica, Eastern Cuba. You've got Manzanillo, Cuba. You've got up near Guantanamo. And then, of course, the Bahamas. And then you had Bermuda being affected by Imelda. And I think it was three systems. Umberto affected them somewhat, Imelda, and then, of course, Melissa to a certain extent. But I think Imelda was the one that passed directly over Bermuda. But Bermuda was in the crosshairs 3 times this year. So that's basically it for the hurricane season. Everybody else, they really got lucky this year. It was a really good season for a lot of people. It's the kind of season you want to have where you don't see storms hit, and that's the way most people like it. They're not junkies like me and some of the other people that are out there that watch these shows and coverage and everything, and they're really into hurricanes, but most people are happy that they don't hit and they just head out to sea. So this was a good year for the United States. Basically, in a nutshell, it was a fish storm year, as we call them in the business, and everything went out into the open Atlantic and behaved themselves. So again, poor people in Jamaica, that's the hard hit area for this year. So before I get into each system this year, I just wanted to talk about potentially attending the National Tropical Weather Conference. I've never been to this conference. I've been to the Florida Governor's Conference. I've been to the National Hurricane Conference in several different places. In fact, the last conference I attended was back in 2012, the Florida Governor's Conference. And I was a little disappointed. I went there to cover, in fact, I think Bill Phillips was with me on that last Florida conference. Maybe it was the one prior to that. I can't remember. But at any rate, we attended the conference, and I had a camera on my shirt here. And I was doing a documentary, like basically just walking up and down all the aisles and the different workshops and the speeches and everything, and letting people see how the conference is as a whole. And so Jack Bevan from the National Hurricane Center comes up and says, "What's that camera doing on your thing? You're not allowed to film, or so it's not right to let people, film them without their authorization." I go, "Jack, I'm trying to do a documentary on this," and so I just turned the camera off. But I got turned off at that point with conferences. I haven't attended any since 2012. But on this particular conference, I want to go to this because this is more geared for meteorologists, media that covers hurricanes, and storm chasers. So it's right up my alley, right? It's covering hurricanes as they're happening, and that's right up my alley. So I figure I didn't spend any money chasing this year or covering hurricanes, and it's probably going to cost a couple $1,000s to go there, come back. So I figured I'm just going to go ahead and probably do this. But on the other hand, I'm kind of thinking, I don't know if I want to go. I mean, I'd love to meet like Tim Smith, Bill Reed, Alex Garcia. These are guys that I've communicated with them over the years, and I've known Alex Garcia since the '90s. I mean, through Hurricane City, and I know a lot of the guys that are there. I'd like to meet Josh Morgan. I've never met him before. Some of the other guys, and Mark, of course, I meet Mark all the time in the hurricane stuff, but there's going to be people giving speeches and whatnot. But I feel like I'm just going to sit in the back. If I go, I don't want to. I don't like. I hate selfies. I hate these group powwow things. I might sit in the back and just listen to shake people's hands, get to know everybody face to face. But I'm not really into that whole. I don't even know if they know anything about Hurricane City. I don't think they pay attention to Hurricane City. I don't even think that. I don't want to go as far as saying they don't respect it, but I don't think that they really understand what it is. I mean, nobody keeps statistics on cities and landfalls better than I do in Hurricane City. And I feel like it's a chance to at least tell them what I do, how, what statistics, and I got a lot of interesting ones to show you tonight. So, anyway, I'm just thinking about that. I don't know that I'm going to attend this conference, but it's in my vision right now. I might do it. It's in April, and I'll fly over there and maybe at least see what it's all about. But on this season, there's a lot of statistics to pass along. So I'm going to do it. I'm going to be like Tony Romo tonight. And for those of you that don't know who Tony Romo is, he's the NFL analyst that talks a little too much, and overanalyzes everything. So I'm going to be your Tony Romo tonight and try to go through a lot of the most important storms anyway, and how they affected people this hurricane season. So it all started with Aaron. Aaron was in August, and there were four tropical storms up till Aaron, and then Aaron started, and this was the big one, the first big one of the hurricane season, right? This became a Category 5 hurricane, but I remember the media hysteria over this, and this is the one thing I'm proud of with Hurricane City is I do not overhype these things unless I think it's really going to be bad. And the way you'll know that is when I start doing, hurricane warning shows days in advance. If I feel like this is going to be killing people and it's going to be really bad and destructive, I will start doing shows nightly at 8 o'clock, maybe 2 nights before, like I did with Melissa, and then usually the night before coverage, and then of course the day of the landfall, I will cover it. But this one didn't have that feeling for me. The models were kind of keeping it off the U.S. coast, but there were forecasters that were grabbing that sucker and pulling it in, man. Every single year this happens. You got a system way out in the East Atlantic, and these are meteorologists that I respect that are on TV, that are out there grappling, hooking the systems and grabbing them toward the United States when the models are saying something other. And it really annoys me. I try not to get in the fray of posting long-range models and getting into these gotcha moments where you're either right or wrong when something is 10 days out or 7 days out. I mean, there's a huge, wide error rate at 7 days on these systems. So the thing about Aaron was it passed safely. Let me go back to that. It passed safely between Bermuda and the United States. Now, there was some coastal erosion in the Outer Banks. Some houses fell in the water. They shouldn't be building in these areas. I mean, this is ridiculous. You can't build a house right on the ocean and expect it to survive even tropical storm conditions, much less hurricane conditions. I think it's just a terrible idea. The houses are all, made out of wood. They're not anchored properly. I mean, it's just, and then of course you got high tides, associated tide cycles when you have a large system like this passing between Bermuda and the United States. So, chasers were also all over this system trying to drag it in, because they want to chase it, and their grappling hooks are out, baby. And, and I just didn't play that with Aaron. I thought Aaron was not going to be a huge threat for the United States. So anyway, that one passed by. Then the next big story of the year was Hurricane Imelda. Now this was one where um, this was the one where Umberto saved us from Imelda, because had Umberto not been out there, uh, causing the weakness in the ridge and bringing a trough down further from the northeastern United States south to grab Imelda and push it out to sea, we would have had a landfalling hurricane in the Carolinas. So as this was happening, I was showing this model map at Hurricane City. And this is why I'm so proud of Hurricane City. And by the way, Chris Hollis has done a fantastic job with Hurricane City. He's remodeled everything and got everything lined up with the models and everything. It's really fantastic. I think Hurricane City now is better than any site out there for tracking hurricanes. If you really want a full view look of a tracking map with the best performing models, there's no better place to go. I mean, you can sit there and show ensemble models and tropical models and global models and blah, blah, blah until you're blue in the face. But what the National Hurricane Center does is they take the best performing models and they put them on a map, and then they draw the cone around it. That's how they come up with the cone for these hurricanes, is the best performing models. What do we do at Hurricane City? Display the best performing models, and you can see the cone neatly wrapped around it. But the models tend to go out further than the cone sometimes. It gives you a good guidance of whether it's going to behave itself and stay within that cone, or is it going to deviate outside the cone. And in Imelda, I was saying on social media, I wasn't buying the hype about the United States landfall. I felt that this was going to get caught up in that Fujiwara effect from Umberto and cause the system to rotate around each other and cause this to head out to sea. And that's inevitably what ended up happening with Imelda. What's really interesting here, this is the best performing models. What I did is ran the best performers on Imelda, and it's color coded, right? So the green, there's hundreds of models on there, but I took the best ones throughout the entire journey of Hurricane Imelda. And believe it or not, the best model on this was the NavGem, the NGX. I'm shocked. Normally that model is terrible and useless, but it did the best on Hurricane Imelda, off by 127 miles at 5 days. The NavGem GFS tracker was number 2. The UK Met was number 3. So this set the tone for the rest of the hurricane season, figuring, okay, we can't ignore these models anymore. You can't ignore the Navy model. You can't ignore the UK Met, the typical ones that everybody dismisses, like the Canadian model. They had a good beat on Imelda. So all of a sudden it changed it for me, especially. I mean, I've always been a fan of the UK Met. I mean, it either is really right or it's really wrong. But generally, that was in there with the NavGem products that predicted the best outcome of Hurricane Imelda. And of course, the European ensembles were there along with it, and the UK Met, the GFS tracker. But that's a version of the UK Met that grabs the GFS data and injects it into the UK Met. But the operational models of the NavGem and the UK Met nailed this. So just wanted to let you know. And I've done the shows on how to find these models. You click the map at Hurricane City and go to the current storm, and then all that data is available by using the past seasons. Actually, let me go to the front page so I can show you that real quick. Get this out of the way. So here's the home page. You go to the past seasons right here, and there's a drop-down menu. You click on 2025, and then you click on whatever model, whatever hurricane you want to know about. So say it's Hurricane Imelda, you click on Imelda, and then you get the final hurricane reconnaissance data on that system. You get the best track data, the model archive. So I click on model archive, and I'm sorry, not that one. We go back. Best track data. And you can get the best performing models on that information on there. So final average model error is where you can really narrow it down to find out what models perform the best. You can choose to color code it, and then it'll break down all the models and tell you which ones perform the best on both intensity and track. So it's a really cool thing it's a really cool tool to use. And by the way, my predictions, I'm going to get to that in a minute. But they were me. But you got to realize my worst years of predictions since doing this, since 2003 rather, was 2014 and 15, similar to this hurricane season, where I didn't get any of my top 5. This year I did get my top 5. I got number 2 Nassau with Tropical Storm Imelda when it passed through there. But I'll get to those in a minute. But back to the images. Again, that nav gem. And again, if you want to comment, anybody out there, just feel free and I'll post your comments online. All right, so this brings us to Melissa, because basically everything came down to Hurricane Melissa this year. And I'll get to the statistics on winds and stuff like that, but throughout the whole hurricane season and models and everything. But as far as storms, there was one this year. Let's face it. Melissa was the king of the queen rather, of the 2025 Atlantic hurricane season. But this model this map, rainfall potential map from the National Hurricane Center, kind of perturbed me at the time when they were posting this when the hurricane was south of Haiti. And the assumption that the Hurricane Center was leaning on the models that were going to take it between Haiti and Jamaica. And I was leaning more on the models like the UK Met and the Canadian model and the European ensembles that were taking it much further west, along with the Google DeepMind, which was outstanding this year. The Google DeepMind model had it going much further west, and I wasn't buying this rainfall potential because I knew it wasn't going to cut the distance between, go between Haiti and Jamaica. So that rainfall wasn't going to pan out. I even said to Bill on the phone a couple times, I don't know why they're talking 40 plus inches in some cases. I just didn't really add up as to what the forecast models were showing. So I wasn't too sold on that. But anyway, here are the models. What I do is, again, track those models on the page I just showed you. And there's a map. You can run them in the Google Maps, and you can pick whatever models you choose. And so what I do is I look at the best performing models, and then I map them on this map. And these were the best performing models when it was well southeast of Kingston, Jamaica. And you can see the HCCA, which was one of the better performers throughout the entire journey on Melissa, really pretty much nailed the track, along with the Google DeepMind, which is in blue here. Let me circle these while I'm talking. So here's the Google DeepMind right here. And of course the HCC up in here. The Google DeepMind is in green. So they all pretty much had the track right on this. I mean, give or take, 20 miles or whatever. But here were the Canadian, the UK Met were out in here. Some of the European ensembles were way down in here. And I was kind of thinking that might happen. But then as it got a little closer to Jamaica, it was appearing that it was slowing down a lot. And I didn't anticipate it making it this far west, because there were even some models that were taking it way over here somewhere. And I just didn't see that really happening. I mean, Florida was still in play at this point, but the best performers were by far right in this area right here. Again, the Google DeepMind, the HCCA, and the European model was really good on the eventual track of Hurricane Melissa. Okay, so our coverage began 2 nights before Melissa made landfall. And again, I only do this kind of thing when I think there's going to be a serious problem. This was it. This was the storm. If I didn't do any shows this year at all, no coverage of any kind until Melissa, because it had all the markings of becoming not only a major hurricane, Category 5 projected, but it had Jamaica written all over it. I know that for a while there, everybody thought it might go into Haiti, which would have been even worse, really, when you think about it. But it did have its eye on Jamaica, and that's what happened. So that was 2 nights beforehand covering that. Then the night before, Bill and I were live. Bill joined me, and we were showing a lot of the model data, the best performers, what was going to eventually happen. And we were saying on that show that this is going to come in a little later in the day than what the National Hurricane Center was projecting. They were projecting like a 5 a.m., 4 a.m. landfall in southern Jamaica. And we were thinking it was going to be more like noontime before that thing got. And sure enough, around 10, 11, the core started moving in. And I think it was around 12 or something that the core or the eye came on shore. Might have even been a little bit later than that. But that was that was the night we were scaring the crap out of everybody, especially in the Grill and even Montego Bay areas on the southwest Jamaican coast. We were telling people to batten down the hatches. This is going to be worse than anything anybody had ever seen in Jamaica. And sure enough, that's what turned out what happened. Here's a comment from somebody. Is Google DeepMind just statistical, or does the National Weather Service use wait a minute, let me read that again. Is Google DeepMind just statistical, or does it use National Weather Service model data? No, it uses the model data. It's not just statistical. It gathers everything from everywhere, and that's why it's such a good model. Man, I'm sweating in here tonight. Hold on a minute. Let me just turn the AC a little cooler here. Hold on a minute. All right. Sorry about that. I had to, I'm soaking wet here, man. I forgot to turn the AC down for these shows because it gets hot in here with all the computers on and the lights and everything. It's just, whew. All right. So, yeah, the Google DeepMind, actually, let me pull that up so people know where to find that information. If you ever need to know about models, go to the homepage at Hurricane City. And what you do is click on the model list over here to the right, upper right-hand corner model list. And you can, there's the Google DeepMind Ensemble. You click on that and it tells you, it uses all of the, there's many different runs of the Google DeepMind. But let's see if there's any more information. It's basically an ensemble probabilistic ML learning machine weather model optimized for tropical cyclones. So I don't want to get into all the details about the Google DeepMind models here tonight, but it does use a lot of data to run, and that's why it's so good. It's just it's a fabulous model, really good. So then our coverage started on what was the hit date on this was I had all this written down here. Okay, so the coverage began. I'm not sure what day it was. That's what I'm not sure if it was a Wednesday. Let me just look it up real quick. Now I'm curious. Forgot exactly what day it is. That storm hit. Okay, let's go back to our storms and then click on Melissa, and then you can zoom in on this map here, which is really cool, and you get your landfall. It was on October 28th. That was a Tuesday, October 28th, that we covered that hurricane. So there it was, and this was at the point where the hurricane hunters found that record wind speed of 252 miles per hour. Amazing. But I got to point out, and let me show you this here. Um, that reading was down in here on that Hurricane Hunter aircraft. So you got 252 miles per hour, but you also have to consider is this was several hundred feet above the ground. This was not several hundred feet above the ocean. So even the tallest of condominiums would probably have been below the height that this was measured, and it was out over the open water. So you take this on shore up in here, and it's already weakening by the time this gets in there. So the people in Jamaica were not experiencing 252 mile per hour winds like that song. Well, they did say 185 miles per hour in that song at the beginning of the show tonight, but I think a lot of people in Jamaica think they had 252 mile per hour winds, but absolutely not. This was several hundred feet above the surface, and by the time the system weakened a little bit, pressure rose as it came on shore, and that southern quadrant came on shore where those winds were measured. Probably the most likely is gust of 200 is what I'm assuming probably happened, because nobody measured, and that's a whole other beef of mine, but nobody measured anything of any value other than Josh Morgan was there, but he wasn't where the eye was, and he measured 926 rather, and the hurricane had 895. Well, 892 at landfall, which, by the way, ties the Labor Day hurricane for the lowest pressure of a landfalling hurricane. But nobody measured any winds like that you can even. It'll be interesting to see the final report from the National Hurricane Center, but it's a big peeve of mine that people don't have their weather instruments updating when these hurricanes hit, and I'm going to get to that in a minute. But there is a solution to that. So anyway, so our coverage began, and there it was. The 252 mile per hour wind was from the Hurricane Hunter, and it was the winds were from the south southwest, and it was a 906 millibar height, which you miss several hundred feet above the surface. So again, that wasn't at the surface. There's a huge difference. I've been in enough hurricanes. I've been in 15 hurricanes. I can tell you what they tell you in the advisory. You might get gusts at the surface similar to that advisory, but you're not going to get a category higher or anything like that. You're usually going to get the sustained winds are going to be usually a category lower at the surface than what they're advertising. And there's no doubt, even in this extreme case, that was the case. They still had category 5 winds, but not 252 miles per hour. So the coverage began, and Bill and I were live, and we were grabbing every cam, every radio audio source you could find on Hurricane Melissa. By the way, drinking a Corona tonight. Not a celebration. Well, celebrating the end of the hurricane season, of course, but I still feel so terrible for the people in Jamaica. But we had videos like this coming in. I was using the VoIP network, which is, the ham radio operators use it. I guess people communicate back in VoIP or the voice over IP. And a lot of these links were coming in with these videos, and we were displaying on the Hurricane Warning Show. And some of these were really dramatic. And you have to be careful because you always think, well, maybe some of these are fake and, AI generated. But this was from a real video that we were playing. And notice, I think this is debris up in here. I mean, there were things flying everywhere. It was just crazy. But what we didn't see was horrific damage to the buildings. And I kept saying to Bill, this has got to be a lot worse than what we're seeing, because I know there's bad videos coming out, but the kind of wind we're talking about is decapitating second floors off buildings and knocking down concrete structures. And I said, we're going to have to wait till they get aerial shots to see what the damage is, because, and sure enough, it turned out that the aerial shots proved that this was devastating. I mean, it was exactly what you would expect from a hurricane this strong. Definitely. So here's my frustration and my beef. This is a Google Earth shot of Jamaica, right? And you see all of our webcams on here. These aren't all the webcams we use, but let's go with the yellow pen here. And so we have cameras over here. We got cameras over in Kingston, and there's a sprinkling of observations here and there. But the problem is, as the hurricane makes landfall, the power goes out. And so the instruments usually go offline. Now, a lot of weather instruments have batteries in them. So you have the internet connection still active in most cases, because even when the power goes out, usually the internet will stay for a little while, your broadband or whatever you're using at home, and then eventually that goes out. So my solution to this is, if you're a weather enthusiast and you have weather instruments in your house or up on your roof or wherever you put them, make sure that most of them have a control panel, like a digital or an analog device. Now, if you have it hooked directly to your computer, you can hook your phone. If you have hotspot availability on your cell phone, you can tether your phone to your PC where your instruments are uploading data, and you can still upload that as long as you have like a UPS on your computer that has battery backup. You can use your cell phone to continue to upload that weather data. Same with cameras as well. Now, if you're on a digital screen like I have, my screen, you can go into the control panel and you can choose cell connectivity. You can use your cell phone as the hotspot. Choose that as your Wi-Fi signal. And your instruments will continue to upload to the internet through your cell phone. If more people did this in the hurricane zones, I could get a lot more data during these hurricanes, but unfortunately, the instruments and the cameras drop like flies. And what also happens is, and it's not any fault of the operator of the instruments or the camera, but a lot of them are outside where the core hits. Like, let's face it, the core came up like this, like in between these yellow lines, right? And there's nothing there. I mean, there's just nothing there. So we were struggling really bad during that. And Bill was bringing up Fox News, and we were monitoring the radio stations from Jamaica, but I mean, it was just nothing. And it's not just in the Caribbean. We run into this problem in the United States as well. And speaking of Bill, by the way, I went to mention this at the beginning. Bill's got a project he's working on online, and a lot of his time is taken up, with what he's got going on. So he's kind of stepped away a little bit from this project. He's not going to be involved in, the shows anymore for the most part. I mean, he might still pop in from time to time, and he's still got his remote camera that we're going to set up for intercepts and whatnot. But Bill's kind of stepped away a little bit on the project, and I appreciate all the work he's done over the years, but it's almost impossible with the switcher program, the energy for us to work together on this, and his time is limited, and it takes a lot to be able to get all this stuff shown from two different locations. So we'll work on things, try to maybe get some of these issues worked out, but he stepped away temporarily on this, so that's the situation. But if you're listening tonight and you have weather instruments, please try to do what I just play around with it in the off season. Hook up your phone to whatever your device is that's uploading the data, and use your phone as a Wi-Fi, and it'll work fine. It doesn't take that much power, and your phone won't get burnt up or anything. But your internet's definitely going to go out at your house, and your power is going to go out. So make sure you have a battery backup for your PC and an ability to charge your phone and continue to upload the data, at least on your phone, so we can find out what the winds are. And as far as mounting, I have mine up on a 40-foot tower, so I'm trying to be unobstructed with my instruments, but a lot of people, they put them on their roof, like right on the roof, so the wind, it's not an accurate reading. They might have a big tree blocking it, or they're in between buildings, and it's not a good way to measure the wind. So try to make it unobstructed if you can, get it high enough, and use your phone as a Wi-Fi alternative for uploading in the middle of a hurricane so we can get this data, so we can do some good shows. It's really frustrating. So here was where all the destruction took place, all these red circles, and there's been a plethora of videos on the internet of damage from Montego Bay, Savannah, Lamar, even inland, Betheltown, Darlington, uh, Santa Cruz over here. Even Mandeville had some damage, Alligator Pond here to the south. But uh, look, I mean, in a nutshell, this was between here and here where all this damage took place. Ocho Rios over here. I've been to Ocho Rios, a nice tourist town. They'll be back on their feet in no time at all. They probably already are. I think I heard a few days ago they already got cruise ships coming in here. But Montego Bay is going to take a little while. McGrill's getting back on their feet over here. Bill was in contact with one of his people he works with in the grill, and he was, he's not one of these guys that's interested in providing information really. So he was just basically, just texting every now and then just to find out what, tell us what was happening. But, it was, we appreciate what he did. And by the way, here's Milo doing his cameo appearance here. My wife Barbara in the back. So, now you're letting all my cool AC out of here. But anyway, this is our newbie. This is Newbie, the new addition to the house. And he's just a joy, this dog. He's a big boy. He's like 120 pounds. And he hasn't had the hurricane experience yet. So we'll see how that works out. If he's scared, he's not scared of thunder at all. It doesn't even bother him. He just lays around, doesn't have any thunder. Unlike Barkass, the previous dog, he was kind of scared of thunder, but this one doesn't faze him at all. He just sits around. He's a big playful puppy, like he's 3.5 years old, and loves. I'm not on full screen here. I should have went full screen. There he is. So anyway, that's Milo, our Mastiff, and he's the new addition to the house. All right. So anyway, back to the images. By the way, if you want to comment, anybody has anything to say, I'll show it on air. So here are the best performers on Melissa, and this is important because Melissa was, obviously the strongest hurricane of the season and probably the most devastating in probably a few years. Going all the way back to Dorian is the last one I can remember that was as strong as this one. But here are the best performers. Look at this. The Google DeepMind was number 1, off by 79 miles at 5 days. The Google DeepMind Weather Next Generation model was number 2. The Google DeepMind Weather Next Graphic AI model was number 3. The DRCL, this is surprising. This is Climate and Persistence model, the Clipper model. Usually this model is really not that good. It came in number 4. And of course, the official National Hurricane Center was number 5. And then the Hurricane Center does an outstanding job because they got to take all these models and kind of come up with their own cone, like I stated at the beginning of the show. And so they usually grade themselves along with the models. And so they're right up there with the Google DeepMinds. And they usually are in the top 5 to 10 of all the models, hundreds of models. The Hurricane Center is usually up there in the top handful of determining factors on where these storms are going to go. So the National Hurricane Center does an outstanding job. And now the Euro was right after them. NHC slightly outperformed the Euro model. But look at the AVN down here. And I added this at the bottom because I wanted to show people how terrible the GFS has been this year, which used to be called the aviation model. The GFS off by 437 miles at 5 days. I mean, just absolutely terrible. The GFS had a terrible year this year, and I'll get to more on the GFS, but they're going to have to, of course we had the Doge thing going on this year where Elon Musk decided to go and rampage the government agencies and start shutting things down and close it. And I don't know if that had 100% effect on the GFS model, but we're competing with the Europeans and these other models. And so that GFS model needs to be not tampered with at a time like this. And it was just very unfortunate that that was toyed with. And I think that might have had some reason for it having a bad hurricane season. We'll have to see about that. So here are the best on the intensity, which is different. Now, the intensity, this is very interesting. The very top one up here. So this is the RYOC, which is the Forecaster Created Consensus Guidance. So basically, forecasters can take any combination of all the models they want to choose and group the five best that they want together, and then it comes up with an average. It was kind of like cheating in a sense. It's like I'm going to take all these best and I'm putting them together, and that'll be the best. But it's a conglomeration of all the other models. But the HFS models, the HFSA and B were the best by far on the tropical models on Hurricane Melissa. These are the tropical models that are run when there's an active invest up to a hurricane, and they were off by 17 knots. The HFBI was off by 18. The HFAI, the AI version of the HAF model, was off by 18.4. The HFSA, which is the operational model, was off by 18.8 knots. And the HCCA was, again, a really good model this year. That was off by 19. And the IVCA and the consensus model down at the bottom was off by 20 knots. These are the best performers on the intensity of Hurricane Melissa. Just an outstanding job by these models to nail how strong this was going to get. I remember when I was looking at those HAFS models in the early runs of Hurricane Melissa, and I thought there's no way this thing's going to get down to 880. I think there were a couple of 888 millibar readings on that model, and I'm like, no way. And it turned out to be right. I mean, the HFA and B models were outstanding on intensity. Okay. So the Hurricane Hunters did an outstanding job this year. There's a lot of shout outs to go in this past hurricane season. As you can see, I don't need to read you the graphic, but the Gulf Stream is really important because they fly the upper levels of the atmosphere, and the surrounding weather systems of what Hurricane Melissa would be heading into. This is for the entire season, not just Melissa, but that jet, the Gulfstream 4, is really the most important hurricane hunter that they have out there, because all that data goes into the models, and the next day everything improves based on the data from the Gulfstream jet. And of course, the P3 Orion Hurricane flew 37 missions this year, 1,112 GPS drop zones released, and there were some drones released, and the what do they call those, sail drones, 8 of them, and they have these underwater gliders. I really wasn't aware of that. We don't dissect all this information. The sail drone, there is a map in Hurricane City for the sail drones, but not for the aerial drones and the gliders that go underwater. But thought this was an interesting graphic. They flew a lot of missions this year. So here are the best models for the entire season, and this is important. And by the way, Brian McNulty has done a great job posting all these images on his blog, and from what I understand, he's going to be hanging it up next year, which is going to be a loss for the hurricane community. I'm imagining that if there's a major threat, he will be back to chime in on a major situation, but he moved out to the western part of the United States. I think he's in Arizona, New Mexico. And so he's not doing the hurricane stuff anymore, apparently, after next season. So he's going to be sorely missed. But these are some of the graphics he posted. This is the track verification from the National Hurricane Center. And notice that Google DeepMind is the best throughout the hurricane season on track. There it is right there, along with the official forecast and the HCCA, the models I just talked to you about. On track forecast, off by 120 miles at, it's about 120 miles at 5 days. So those models did a really good job. And, naturally, when you're in this, you're only talking 34, 40 miles off here at 48 hours down here. That's really good, because you need to know where that eye is headed when you're 2 days out and you're staring down the barrel of that shotgun. And that Google DeepMind and the HCCA and the National Hurricane Center nailed it this year, did a really good job. And here are the intensity verifications. So again, we have the official is the best down here, and then the Google DeepMind right above it, and the HMNI, and the HCCA, of course, all in this area right in here. The IVCN, the consensus model, all did good on intensities. Again, off by 20 knots at 5 days. And that's not much different from, you're off maybe 10 knots at 48 hours on some of these models, but it's a good indication. You get a good idea of 48 hours, what's going to hit you. Pay attention to Google DeepMind, the National Hurricane Center, and the HCCA models, which can be all found at Hurricane City. So the GFS, this is why I did not post long-range models this year. I didn't trust it. I felt like there was a lot of, I almost think sometimes, you ever feel like the GFS sometimes is programmed to create a bunch of category 5s just to get people talking? That's kind of, the average person out there would think that, but that's not really the way it works. There's millions of data points that go into the GFS, but it was spinning up some really strong hurricanes this year, and this was from recent. This was initiated on November 30th, okay? Valid November 30th. They were saying there was going to be a system developing on this day down in the Southwest Caribbean, and it was going to turn into a major hurricane on December 10th near western Cuba. And of course, we all know now that didn't happen. There's nothing developing down there right now. So again, this GFS was just terrible. And there's a lot of guys that make a livelihood on social media posting these long-range models. But the GFS, if you're going to sit there and post a 384-hour GFS, and when it changes every run, I mean, I'll post maybe a 7 to 10 day model run. If I feel like there's enough consistency to it, I may make mention of it. But if it's going out 14 days and it's one on again, off again, or it's only one model run and you're just going to run with it because it generates clicks, right? I do Hurricane City because I care about people that are on land getting hit by hurricanes. I'm not into the clickbait and all the click stuff. And some of these guys have gotten better at it, but they're still a little out of control on posting these long-range models. I just disregard it when you see this crap. It's just, you can come to Hurricane City, and if there's an invest, that's when you got to start paying attention. But when there's no invest and you see this crap on the internet, it's garbage. It's flat, hot garbage. All right, so here are the major hurricanes percentage in each year. Usually we're about, the average is probably 30 to 40%. That's the dashed line there. 40% of all the hurricanes become major, right? And look at this year, it was 80%. That's phenomenal. I mean, there's talk about heat content available for hurricanes. 80% of the majors this year, of the hurricanes became major. That's truly incredible. And again, this was posted by Brian McNulty at the Rosenstiel School of Marine, Atmospheric, and Earth Science. Appreciate that so much, the work that he does. So here's a general, this can also be found at Hurricane City. Here's a general layout of the, hurricanes, all the named storms and when they formed. And lately there's been this tendency for the storms to form in the latter half of the hurricane season over here. And the beginning lately has not really been there that much, maybe a few tropical storms and whatnot, but there's been a lot of talk about starting the hurricane season earlier. I don't agree with that. Or starting the hurricane, or extending the hurricane season beyond November 30th, which is the the 184th day of the hurricane season. I think everything is just fine the way it is. And while I'm on the subject, I think they should leave the Saffir-Simpson scale alone. It's a great scale because it never fails to show exactly what ends up happening. You're going to get the 10 to 15 foot surge in a category 3, and you're going to get partial roof damage. Happens every time. Category 4, they say you're going to get most of the roof damage. That's usually what happens. Category 5, a whole roof failure, roofs fly off, small buildings get tossed down the street, and you have a 20-foot wall of water. That's usually what ends up happening. So I love the Saffir-Simpson scale. I think they just need to leave it alone. They can emphasize the storm surge in a separate category, and I don't think they need to mess with the Saffir-Simpson scale. But again, this graphic shows you it's been late leaning lately, the hurricane seasons, and this year was no different. So this is the most important thing about hurricanes, right? Is where are they going to go? Where are they going to hit? This was the 2020 map, okay? 2020, we had 83% of the 128 28 cities in the Hurricane City database at Hurricane City that we keep track of. 128 different locations. Out of the 128 in 2020, 80% of 83% were affected by 40 plus mile per hour winds. Now go to 2021, it dropped to 55%. Then in 2022, it dropped to 45%, 62 areas affected, 45%. Then in 2023, it dropped to 37% of the cities impacted. And in 2024, it was the same thing, 37%. I'm sorry, it was 63% last year. Correct that. 63%, 37% was the previous season. And then, of course, this year we're down to 18%. So, I mean, my God, 18% of all 128 cities is like nothing. And again, if it wasn't for Melissa and Melba, there would have been hardly any hurricane, any impacts to land at all. Gabrielle hit the Azores out here, but the slowest season for landfalls that I can remember, and of course I wasn't doing these maps back in 2014 and 15, so it would have been interesting to see, but I think there probably would have been more impacts or on par with this season back in 2014 and 15. But yeah, I mean, 18%, that's a pretty good year. If you're hoping for a hurricane season, you want to keep it below 20% of the land impacts, and it seems to be going down each season. Now, that's not to say that next year it's not going to bump right back up to 80% of the cities being impacted. This is just a statistical reality that's currently taking place and has no, and by the way, for people that are looking to take this statistic and go, see, global warming means nothing. The hurricanes are still getting stronger and they're more impactful, even though they might be further away from land. So you can't take that as global warming means nothing, because they're going to come around again. This is just a cycle. These things come and go in cycles, and it'll start over again. I've heard from people, statistically speaking, you get decades where they come in like this. Then you get another decade where they come up Florida or come in on Florida like this. Then you got other decades where it's the mid-Atlantic and the Northeast. So we don't know what's going to happen next. But I have a suspicion it's going to start focusing more on this area over the next, probably decade. And then it's going to shift more to the Northeast and the East Coast after that. But that's just my hunch. I don't really have any proof that that's going to happen. That's just a hunch of mine. So how did my predictions do? Let's go back to that. Let's go to Jim's predictions. And every year I highlight the cities that I picked before the season started. This was picked on May 15th. Again, if anybody wants to comment before the show ends tonight, I'd be happy to put you on air with your comments. I highlight the top 20 areas that I think are going to be impacted, and then as the season progresses, they get highlighted in yellow if they're impacted. So number 2, Nassau, was almost hit dead on by Tropical Storm Imelda, so that was my number 2. I really had a leaning for the mid-Atlantic coast this year. It didn't happen. The Florida Panhandle and the Bahamas. I'll show you my high impact map in a minute. Cat Island, Bahamas was impacted by Tropical Storm Imelda and Hurricane Melissa. Mole St. Nicholas, Haiti, even though it was 170 miles per hour, 170 miles away, it did get hit by 40-mile-per-hour plus winds. So, for a while there, the thinking was it was going to pass right over Mole St. Nicholas, and that was an anomaly this year in my predictions, having one of the Haitian cities in my top 20. Luthra Island, Bahamas, Tropical Storm Imelda and Melissa. Number 18, Nuvitas, Cuba, which is on the north central coast of Cuba, was brushed by Melissa. And Great Abaco Island, which is one of the most impacted areas in the entire Atlantic Basin, was basically Tropical Storm Imelda passed right over before it became a hurricane. So here were my map of concern. I had the most risk in the western Bahamas and possibly southeast Florida. That really did not happen. I mean, again, we had Imelda, coming up like this, and Melissa and Imelda coming up like this. But I really expected something a little more intense in this circle here, and that just didn't happen. So, was it a bust? No. Was it terrible? I would say no. I would say it was just like a little bit below average for my expectations. I really thought I would have had more areas impacted this year, but it just didn't happen. And of course, I had my potential tracks that I thought could happen this year. I pretty much nailed the mid one with Imelda. It came pretty close to this track. And late with Melissa, it was just a little bit off to the left. But, again, Melissa came up like this. And so it basically had the same concept on track. It just was a little bit further west than what I was east of what I was anticipating. And this never panned out over here. So, again, I grade myself on a 1 to 10. I give myself like a 4 this year on my predictions. And by the way, predicting the amount of named storms every year is a crapshoot, okay? It's an absolute crapshoot. Nobody's getting it right. Phil Klotzbach was off by, I think, 5 named storms. The National Hurricanes, the NOAA forecast, they have this wide range of possibilities, so it's hard to be wrong. I think they were predicting between 13 and 20 or something, and it's like, you can't be wrong when you're doing that kind of thing. So it's like, yeah, they were right technically, but most people that were doing these predictions picked like one or a small range of possible numbers of storms that you're going to get throughout the hurricane season, and nobody nailed it. There were a couple of agencies that got close, but nobody, I don't think, nailed it exactly. I think NC State or something did pretty good, but it's hard. It messes with my predictions because my predictions rely heavily on the amount of named storms. I was predicting 18 to 20, and we ended up with 13, so I was off by 5 at the low end. And so it affected, had we had more storms, maybe more of my areas would have been impacted, especially my top 5. All right. Do we have? No, that's it for the images. So anyway, let me go back full screen here. I would say that this was a good hurricane season for the United States. No doubt about it. A great hurricane season for the United States. Nobody had any, with the exception of the Outer Banks, we had Aaron brush there, as you can see on the map. It was a brush from Hurricane Aaron, but it did a lot of the damage on the Outer Banks of North Carolina. Again, Tropical Storm Chantel caused some flooding in northern North Carolina and South Carolina, but this could have been far worse. Again, I put number 1, Jamaica, obviously the worst impacted. Number 2, Eastern Cuba. Number 3, the Central Bahamas. And number 4, Bermuda, which was impacted by Hurricane Imelda and Hurricane Melissa. So, in a nutshell, good hurricane season with the exception of the Central Caribbean. They could have lived without Melissa, but overall, Again, only 18% impacted of the land masses, the cities, and poor people of Jamaica. It's going to be a long rebuilding process. My heart goes out to you. Um, Even going into next year, let's hope they don't get anything into Jamaica next year. But I'll release my predictions on May 15th again, because this only makes this another year where I got one of my top five, and that's only 2 years out of my 23 years. Wait a minute, 23. It's 2003. It's 22 years. I think there was 1 year I missed, but 20. Let's just round it. 22 years of doing predictions, and only 2 of those years, none of my top five were impacted. I think that's pretty damn good. This year I got one of my top five. So again, 2014 and 15 were the only 2 years I did not have a top five impacted. So again, I give myself 40% success for this hurricane season. So again, let's wrap it up here and go back to our graphic for the 2005 hurricane season and take one more look, because I don't think we're going to get this lucky next year, folks. I think we're going to have a lot more landfalls, especially stateside. Even places like Puerto Rico didn't really get impacted very much this year. So we'll see what happens next year. That's it for me, Jim Williams. Again, I want to thank special thanks to Bill Phillips for his help this year and the past years. Thank you to Chris Hollis, Tropical Atlantic, for putting all this together, Hurricane City. Bookmark it, share it, tell people about Hurricane City. It's the best place to go to track hurricanes. And please, we live on donations, folks. Scan that QR code with your phone. Donate any amount of money throughout the hurricane season, please. The donation buttons are on the front page of Hurricane City. If we have a small group of people that donate, thank you all to the people that have continued to donate to Hurricane City. I'll keep up the effort. As far as my health, it's great. I feel good. I have a bump on my back I'm a little bit concerned about. I'm going to have to head to the doctor on that. But for those of you that know my medical history, I've had a rough, since 2020, it's been a disaster. This has been the first year it's been good. So let's just hope it stays that way. And I'll see you next year, June 1st. We'll kick it all off again with my predictions, and we'll go through another hurricane season. But glad everybody came out unscathed in the States this year for the most part. And my thoughts go out to the people in Jamaica. It's going to be a long haul. Just keep the spirits up. You will recover eventually and get your lives back. And you'll learn from this one and move on to the next one.